Hi guys, Carl Magnus here. Welcome to the first episode of the face-to-face flirting podcast. I'll hopefully encourage you to think about wider issues that will result in your interactions with women going as well as they possibly can. Today, what I wanted to talk about is the top 5 mindset shifts that are necessary to get the most out of your interactions. This episode's mainly for beginners and lower intermediate level guys, but I think advanced guys could get quite a lot out of it too, because I'm going to challenge conventional thinking a little bit. So number 1, rejection doesn't exist. If you speak to a woman and she doesn't show attraction, I wouldn't say it's such a big deal, you know? It should be water off a duck's back. You definitely shouldn't take it personally. And I'll give you a useful analogy. Imagine one day that you're in a great mood. You get stopped by a charity sign-up person. You decide to sign up there and then. But, on another day, when you're stressed, you're late to an appointment, and in a questionable mood, you might brush off the charity person. You reject them. I mean, it could have been the exact same sign-up person who was treating you the exact same way in both of these two scenarios. But you behave differently. So was the rejection a rejection of the sign-up person, the charity organisation, and the overall concept of charity? No, of course not. So that's why you shouldn't make this same assumption when it comes to women's behaviour. And I've written a whole blog post about this topic, so you can find that on my website. Number 2, stop being passive. This might sound like a bit of a platitude, stop being passive. What I mean by this specifically is actively go out of your way to be proactive. Women and children can be passive and still thrive in this world. But, as a man, you can't just wait to be invited to things. And this could be going for dinner or doing any activity, say going out with a wingman to talk to girls. So the recommendation there would be this month, make sure you're the one who makes the most suggestions between you and your friends or your wingman, who are hopefully your friends too. And give specific suggestions. Suggest a specific time and place and hold yourself accountable to what you've agreed upon. Don't just hope that your wingman's going to be accountable. Next thing is just don't back out of it. Don't let your friends down and be on time. And the next point, number 3, make sure you adhere to the male-to-male bro code. Don't treat your wingman and male friends as competition, because you shouldn't really be trying to compete with your friends. You should be strengthening the male bonds. This is going to be much better for your long-term vibe. It's useful to kind of think of guys like surfers or snowboarders. They congratulate each other, high-five each other after they've done a cool run or landed a difficult trick or something like that, You should be viewing it in terms of, the surfer, snowboarder, bro code, and don't think of it as you're about to step inside a cage and fight the other guy. Because, chatting to a woman isn't a direct one-on-one male confrontation. You're not, when you're doing a day game and it's very much you on your own. So just chill out and don't make such a big deal out of making everything so competitive. So for example, when you're out together, don't steal your wingman's sets. And what I mean by that is your friend might be eyeing up a girl and maybe probing for an indicator of interest from her, such as she looks at the guy. Don't approach that woman just because your friend's interested in her. Don't be an idiot when it's clear that he's been checking her out and he's spotted her. So it's okay to call it out as well. Look, I saw you checking out that girl. I see you checking her out right now. She's nice. You should go. If you don't go, I will. So now you're doing a friend who's being hesitant to approach a favour. You're giving him a little nudge to try to do it himself. Ultimately, if he does back out, and there's an understanding and it's okay for you to go in, and there won't be any bad vibes about that. If you're not socially aware enough to understand how this kind of bro code works, then just come up with a system where you can approach and you do every other approach. So your wing does an approach, then you do an approach, and there won't be this weird kind of like who's going to steal whose sets, Because it's going to be especially transparent if you're the one who usually approaches very rarely, and then you see your wing about to approach and you do it just because he's about to do it. This is very much, gamma male behavior. Don't be consistently late when meeting your wing. This is, an issue that a lot of guys have to deal with, and It's linked to point number 2, stop being passive. So make plans and commit to the plan, because it's going to have a knock-on effect on everything in your life, whether it's going to the gym, committing to cooking healthy meals, whatever, doesn't really matter. You have to commit. So it's especially bad if you don't apologize if you're excessively late. Don't lie and say things like, oh, I fell asleep, I had to rush here. Your friend's not going to buy it. So maybe you're late because you're nervous, or you procrastinated about leaving your house because of the nerves, or something like this. Just send a text well in advance. Look, I'm going to be 30 minutes late, really sorry about that. And make it clear that you are sorry, because your wing's going to be setting aside time to actually go out with you and try to help you there as moral support as well. Don't leave guys hanging, because it will create a bad reputation amongst guys. 4. Have wingmen but strive for solo proficiency. There are a lot of benefits to hitting the streets with wingmen, but you don't always want to be dependent on going out with wingmen, because it's not ideal in the long run. So a lot of guys, they tend to compare themselves to the guys they wing with, and this ego involvement can be a big issue. You might have one guy who likes to wing with complete beginners, whereas he's a lower intermediate himself. And he'll do this because it strokes his ego to watch the beginner guy unable to approach, whereas he can feel special if he does one approach throughout the whole session himself. It may be the case that a guy like that is feeling good at the expense of getting good. So that's quite a big distinction there. Getting good versus feeling good. Another guy, he might become dependent on winging with a guy he can banter with and have a good time with, but then they don't really get anything else done, and that's a trap as well. So it's okay to wing with whoever, but just make sure that you're not deluding yourself, and make sure that you're actually making progress, and that these wingman issues don't get in the way of that. What might be tougher for a guy's ego is to wing with a guy who's considerably better than himself. It doesn't really make logical sense in terms of actually improving though. You'll learn a lot from him through osmosis. You're going to listen to what he says and watch what he does. And to an extent, you do become the sum of the people that you hang out with. So a useful analogy is the gym. So I remember when I first joined a proper gym, there were some really big guys in the gym, and I felt pretty self-conscious because I would lift these lighter dumbbells off the racks, whereas they would go for the really heavy ones. And this feeling of self-consciousness, it persisted for a while until it wasn't a big deal any longer. And that's what cold approach is all about as well, is just getting desensitized, go through it. You can't just avoid it or try to avoid it. So in the community, you have a lot of guys who face the same challenges and have had to face the same challenges throughout their own journey. So if we're talking about these experienced guys, they're no special snowflake. And so they're going to be able to relate very well to your own struggles, and they're going to have plenty of tips and morale boosting things to say about these issues. And they'll reassure you that, you're not such a special snowflake. If we take the gym analogy, they're really buff, roided guys, they're not anything like the average guy on the street. So in terms of cold approach, this would be like going to the gym and getting ripped. You'd still be way ahead of the competition if the competition is actually, in fact, just the average guy on the street. So having game is just being better than the average guy who's out there on the street, who's on social media, trying to get dates through apps on his phone. And number 5, just stay positive. And again, this is going to sound like a platitude, but I'll give some practical insights here. Try to actively highlight the positives from your interactions with women, that is, because our brains do tend to highlight the negative, and apparently this is a survival mechanism, so it makes sense to a degree for your brain to draw attention to threats around you in your environment. But in terms of cold approach, there is no real danger, so you can try to actively draw out the positives. So it's a good idea to write down how your interactions went in a journal, and write what went well, and then write what you could have done a little bit better, and maybe what you forgot to do, and give yourself constructive criticism. A critique that is actually going to lead to improvements and isn't just you reinforcing negative beliefs that you may have. So write down positive affirmations. If you do any kind of research around pro sports people, you'll realize that they all do visualization techniques and affirmations. And these things have been proven to be effective. So you want to avoid double negatives when you write these affirmations. For example, write, "Every day I am becoming more charismatic," or women enjoy flirting with me. And you can recite your affirmations verbally, for example, in front of the mirror. But I find writing them down is really, really effective, because there's something that happens when you write down the affirmations and then read them after you've written them down that just somehow sinks in even better into the subconscious, I find. So you're kind of counteracting perhaps several years of negative self-beliefs that are not necessarily even accurate. So you want to consciously look at that. An integral part of being effective when you're flirting with women is having this groundedness and having this self-belief, which girls feel this energy, which is your chillness and your sense of you're not going to be affected by her because you have a solid inner core. She's going to feel that more strongly than she's going to feel some kind of effect of some kind of witty verbal routine that you might practice and talk to a woman without saying the perfect things verbally, but you'll still get results. But you can't say things perfectly verbally and be shaky, have a shaky inner belief, still do well. It doesn't work that way around. So you need to look at it like it's approximately 50-50, but you want to have this as well handled as you can. And then later down the line, practicing flirting in general, competence leads to confidence. So to an extent, if you're out there just taking action and trying, you will do better and you will see better results. I've given a few different tips there on how to go about this. So if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with anyone who you think might benefit from it. If you want to learn more about me and find some free resources and blog posts, then head over to carlmagnus.com. That's carlmagnus.com. Carl with a K and Magnus with a Z at the end. And that's it. So thanks for listening, and I'll catch you again on the next episode. Go out and flirt with some women. All right, see you guys.